What's up? What's happening? What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to my station. Just for anything and everything Mission, including a sponge that lives in a pineapple under the sea, as well as TV and movies. I'm your host, Jackson Small. Welcome back to SpongeBob Month 7. Let's not waste any time and dive straight into today's first episode, Growth Spout. In this episode, Pearl ends up going through a growth spurt, or a growth spout as they call it in the show, so Mr. Krabs has to find ways to feed her. After giving her the entire refrigerator, he kind of runs out of food. And after Pearl tries to eat his money, he's then sent on a quest to steal food from everyone else he knows, including his own girlfriend, Mrs. Puff, Squidward, and SpongeBob. And it goes in a bunch of different ways. Like, the first one, Mrs. Puff, was a fail. And then the second one at Squidward's house was surprisingly not a fail, even though it's Squidward we're talking about here. And then the third one is when he goes to SpongeBob's house, and then SpongeBob mistakes him breaking in for a sleepover until Squidward steps in for some reason and tells him the truth, and then that's when SpongeBob comes up with the idea of bringing Pearl to the Krusty Krab to just give her a Krabby Patty. And, well, that's what fills her up, and that's what manages to stop her growth spout and return her to normal. And in SpongeBob's own words, it was made with love. This episode is pretty great, mainly for the way that it's able to depict, puberty and growth spurts with how it is in real life, but doing it in a way where it's funny and cartoony. And when Pearl tries to eat his money, I find that as a funny little in-joke about how teenagers going through puberty eat through their parents' wallets. I don't know, maybe that's just me overthinking. I just find that part funny. And then as for the highlights of the episode, I actually have 3 of them. And it's mainly because there is 0 highlights in the next episode we have to talk about. So let's get through them nice and quick. First up is when Mr. Krabs tries to steal Mrs. Puff's food out of her garden. And Mrs. Puff uses a boomerang crowbar that hits the plank on the fence that then smacks him in the rear and sends him flying, and then comes back to her like a boomerang. I don't know, I guess we can call it a crowbarang? Sorry, bad. Bleh. I am bad at puns sometimes. And then highlight number 2 is it's the sack joke, where Mr. Krabs has a giant sack full of stolen goods, and he gets caught by the police, and he tries to pass himself off as Santa Claus for the holidays. And the cops, at first, it seems like the cops don't buy it because you hear the police siren, but then it cuts to the police actually dropping off Mr. Krabs at his house, showing that they did actually fall for it. And considering how gullible and dumb the police are in this show, that's not a surprise. And then my final highlight is the ending. It's just super cute and sweet in that perfect SpongeBob way, where he is able to bring Pearl back to normalcy with just one Krabby Patty. And when Mr. Krabs asks for the ingredient, he just says, "It was love," leaving him confused and Pearl happy and SpongeBob proud of himself. In, that cute, usual SpongeBob way. So, yeah, this episode's pretty great, especially if you understand the adult humor, and it just gets funnier every time you see it. And again, it's weird how this really terrible season starts out surprisingly decent. I mean, we're about to crush back down to earth in the next part of this review, but still, having 3 episodes in a row that's not terrible, that's actually pretty impressive. Not to mention the second great one in a row. So, yeah, I got nothing else to say. Final verdict for this episode is a high and well-deserved 8 out of 10. It's a pretty great one. I do think I Heart Dancing is better and funnier, but this one is really, really good, especially, again, if you're an adult that understands the jokes. And it is way better than the next thing we have to talk about, which is the first of 10 giant trash bags in this season. And it's one of those infamous episodes that everyone already knows is a pile of crap. So let's not waste too much time and just suffer through Stuck in the Wringer. This is one of those episodes that I was dreading ever discussing because it is so infamous that it's often labeled as one of the worst episodes of the entire show. And for very good reason. This episode is trash. There is not a single moment in it that's not stupid, aggravating, or just plain lazy. It is one of the absolute crappiest and worst SpongeBob episodes we've looked at so far. And unfortunately, it's not going to get much better because even after this review, there's still 9 whole garbage piles left to go through in this review marathon thing. So, yeah, let's just get it out of the way right now. So, what's the plot Stuck in the Wringer? Well, SpongeBob gets stuck in his wringer. And Patrick, who's been whittled down to the IQ of a literal pea, sticks him in there with forever glue, especially when he has slick stuff right in that same freaking pocket, leaving SpongeBob glued in place, and then SpongeBob has to try and go through his normal day with the wringer still inhibiting what he can and can't do. And then we get a bunch of boring filler, with SpongeBob getting yelled at, kicked out of the Krusty Krab, squirting mustard into Squidward's eyes, causing them to melt off his face. Didn't need that. And then, when Patrick does try to cheer him up later, he ends up doing the absolute opposite. Because he eats his ice cream when SpongeBob can't swallow the ice cream because of the wringer, which makes absolutely no sense. Then they go to the carnival, and Patrick sends him flying. And then Patrick tries to, and then instead of going to check on his friend after he sends him flying out of these spinny cup things at the carnival, he instead goes to play darts and wins a prize. So, thankfully, and rightfully, SpongeBob snaps at him, calling him a terrible friend and saying that he has helped quite enough. So he runs off crying, but because this is the season where everyone in Bikini Bottom turns into the biggest freaking hypocrite, they end up thinking that SpongeBob is in the wrong, saying that he has a bad heart. First of all, screw you, and second of all, no, he's not in the wrong. Patrick was the one that kept making his situation worse and worse, and SpongeBob rightfully snapped at him when he had enough. So having these random townspeople call out SpongeBob, despite the fact that he's the victim, it's so freaking stupid. And not to mention, again, pure hypocrisy. So then SpongeBob is paralyzed and insane, left in his house where he's just watching blank TV. And Patrick actually starts crying. Finally showing some regret about what he did. Only for then the tears to be the thing that melts off the forever glue, and then both of them cry for a little bit, always a pleasant sound. And then they end it with an absolutely half-assed moral of, I guess crying does solve your problems after all. Yeah, no, screw you. This episode is trash. The hypocrisy of the townspeople, SpongeBob getting tortured for no reason, and when SpongeBob finally actually does what he's supposed to do and snaps at Patrick, then he's treated like the bad guy, despite the fact that he was the victim the entire freaking episode. And then you add on that terrible moral at the end and the unneeded body horror of Squidward having his eyes melted off by mustard. Yeah, screw this episode. It is one of the absolute worst in the entire show. And thank goodness it is now one of the most infamous, because it deserves it. If a piece of crap like this ended up getting swept under the rug, yeah, I probably would have lost my sanity. Final verdict for this absolute, unsavable, unwatchable abomination from hell is a 0 out of 10. The first of many episodes in this season to straight up hit rock bottom. And that's it. That's all I've got. Thank you guys so much for watching. Please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And I'll see you guys next time for another trash episode and another good episode. With the Also, equally infamous, Someone's in the Kitchen with Sandy, and the surprisingly solid, underrated The Inside Job. So, until then, thanks for watching, stay spongy, and I'll see you in the next review. Peace.
Listen, I will soon forget. So listen and you won't regret. Be true to yourself, don't miss your chance, and you won't end up like the fool who ripped his pants.